Welcome to the Georgia Archives Virtual Lunch and Learn program. I'm Penny Cliff, the Education Specialist here at the Archives. We're glad that you've joined us to watch our October presentation. Our Lunch and Learn programs are held on the second Friday of the month and are sponsored by Friends of Georgia Archives and History. Thank you, FOGA. During this pandemic, we want to offer you Lunch and Learn programs safely in a virtual format. As always, I'm thankful that my colleague, Ali Cawthorne, is taking care of the technical side of these virtual presentations. We are pleased to have, as our October speaker, professional genealogist Susan Sloan, whose presentation, using Georgia's land lotteries to prove family relationships, I know you have been looking forward to. You will see a link to the two handouts, case studies, and land lottery overview for this presentation in the question and answer area. Now please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, as they're easy for us to find and we don't want to miss any of them. This presentation will be added to our YouTube channel, Georgia Archives, so be looking for that. Before we begin, let me share a little bit about our speaker. Susan is a professional genealogist whose areas of concentration are conducting private lineage research and preparing lineage applications. She has authored articles in several genealogical publications in Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina. She holds a Bachelor of Science and Master of Education degrees from Georgia State University. Susan is a past president of the Georgia Genealogical Society and the Georgia chapter of the Association of Professional Genealogists. She's a member of Georgia Professional Genealogists and the Georgia Chapter Association of Professional Genealogists. Susan has given over 150 presentations and classes at 52 or more different venues. Susan is a member of 7 lineage societies where she has served in various officer positions. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here today to talk with you about Georgia's land lotteries and how to use them in family research. This presentation is in part to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the 1820 land lottery. 200 years ago today, and they were doing the drawings, between September 1st and December 2nd, 1820, the land of the 1820 land lottery was being distributed to citizens of Georgia. The actual drawing was taking place right now. The land being distributed was in the original counties of Early, Irwin, Abilene, Raven, Habersham, Hall, Gwinnett, and Walton in North Georgia. Next year, between November 7th and December 12th, will be the 200th anniversary of the actual drawing phase of the 1821 land lottery that was distributed the land where the archives now stands. It was originally Henry County and became Clayton County in the 1850s. In 2010, the Georgia Genealogical Society published a book on the land lotteries written by Paul K. Graham. This book is a must in order to understand the lotteries and how to use them in family research. You can purchase a copy of that book by going to Amazon.com. Now, this presentation is an effort to provide some information about the lotteries and encourage you to purchase the book for more details so you can find out exactly how to use that lottery information and use it for your research. The book provides strategies for finding and using the land lottery material, information about original counties, and other valuable miscellaneous information about the land lotteries. So just think about it. How many of you have ancestors that passed through Georgia sometime between 1803 and 1833? And how many of you have used land lottery records in your research already? I hope this presentation will provide you with some new information that you can use to further your research. Georgia had 8 land lotteries between 1805 and 1833, and the resulting records are unique in genealogy and provide much information for family historians. Georgia received its land in segments by treaty with either the Creek or Cherokee Indians, depending on the area of the state. The lotteries are called by the year they took place, and the books on land lottery winners also calls them in that order. For instance, the book on the 1820 land lottery calls it the 3rd or 1820 lottery. So we have lotteries in 1805, 1807, 1820, 21, 27, and 1832 land and gold, and 1832 gold. In 1833, there was a special lottery for fractional lots, and we'll talk more about each one of those lotteries later. Prior to the lottery process, Georgia distributed its lands using a Headright system. Under this system, a man was granted land based literally on the number of heads in his household. He was entitled to 200 acres for himself and 50 acres for each additional family member or slave, up to a total of 1,000 acres. There were very few restrictions on the shape of the lots, and many had some very unusual shapes, causing many boundary disputes and lawsuits. Abuses in this system caused Georgia to have to come up with a different way to distribute their land. Now, this is how we did it before the land lotteries. First, the citizen requested a warrant from the land court. The warrant was had a survey and had to be given to a surveyor to survey the land, so it was issued by the court, a warrant for survey. Then the surveyor was hired by the grantee and had to be paid by the grantee, and the land was surveyed by the surveyor, and then the surveyor returned the plat to the court, and then the court granted the land. So you can see there are places along the way where this could have, this process could have stopped, where you might have gotten a warrant for survey, but never followed through and gotten the grant. Here's one of my favorite slides. It's a plat made out to Richard Call, Esquire, on the 4th of May, 1786. It has 31 sides. And as you can see, how could you, when the surveyor goes back to look at this, how can he tell where exactly Mr. Call's boundary line is when he's surveying for someone else? So abuse and fraud under the system that we had caused the Georgia legislature to develop a different way to distribute the land, and that began with what we call the 1805 lottery. Georgia was also one of the states that provided bounty land for Revolutionary War veterans. And the bounty land process, in which men received land for military service, also took place during that pre-lottery timeframe in Georgia. Now, let's talk about the history a little bit. The first transfer of land from the government to an individual resulted in the individual being issued a document called a patent or a grant. Whether the first owner received a patent or grant depended on the state where the transaction took place. For example, in Virginia, they received a patent, while in Georgia, we call them grants. When the first owner sold it to another individual, that sale and all sales of the land after that was recorded using a deed. Deeds are county records. Patents and grants are state records. So if you have county record loss, if they receive the land in the land lottery process, that's going to be a state record, so it will survive. The two processes that are involved in the Headright system and the bounty land system, there were two things that were important. The first is the survey. In the land lottery system, they had asked for uniform squares, and the distribution was going to be done by random cost. And sometimes circumstances required the lots to be surveyed, as rectangles or parallelograms or some other shape, but the goal was to be square. And if a person's name was drawn for a land lot, they were given first opportunity to obtain a grant to the land. In some cases, the person whose name was drawn didn't want to take up the land or failed to follow through with the grant procedure. And after a certain length of time determined by the legislature, the unclaimed lots reverted back to the state and were sold. Okay, the smallest unit in the land lottery process was a land lot. Several hundred lots made up a land district, and several land districts made up an original county. The only exception to this rule is the 1832 lotteries. They used one original county, Cherokee, and had a section designation in addition to districts and lots. And before we go any further, let's go over some definitions of terms I'll be using throughout this presentation. There are three important people when you talk about land lotteries. They are participants. Those are persons who registered for the lotteries but did not win. Fortunate drawers are those who won land in the lottery. And purchasers, people who bought land from the state after the lotteries. These lots could be lots that reverted back to the state. In other words, the winner didn't want the land for some reason or didn't claim it, and so it reverted back. And fractional lots, those are the lots that are, as you know, in Georgia, our land is not laid out in squares. So sometimes there were pieces of land that were left over after they did the lots. So those were also in that last lottery. And I'm sure you noticed that, Georgia's counties aren't square. So they had some lots that did not meet that qualification. So for all lotteries except the 1832 lottery, these fractional lots were sold at auction after the lottery. And then that special lottery was held in 1833 to dispose of all those other fractional lots that were left over. The losers from the 1832 lotteries were given a second chance, so to speak, to win and take some of those fractional lots. Okay, the land lottery process had 6 steps. The treaty. Now, these treaties were negotiated between the United States, not the state of Georgia, but the United States, and either the Creek or Cherokee Indians, and they gave the state of Georgia title to the land. Then the legislature approved a law providing the process for surveying, registration, and granting the land. During this process, the size of the lots and original counties were determined, along with designating surveyors for each area. You can access the laws online from the Georgia Archives website by going to the Georgia Legislative Documents area. Okay, and there were, this slide shows a sample of the different size lots in each land lottery. The legislature had to decide the particulars depending on the value of the land, whether it was hilly, whether it was good for farming, whether it was good for growing trees, those kinds of things. So you can see that they had different criteria and different acreage depending on the area of the state where the land was and what it could be used for. Then we had the surveys. The surveyors were chosen to run the various lines required by the legislation, including land lots, districts, and original counties. And then we had the registration period. Citizens who met the criteria set by law were given an allotted time to register for the lottery. Usually they went to their county courthouse to do this. And they paid 12.5 cents for each draw they registered for. And fifth was the drawing itself. After all lots were surveyed and registrations finished, the drawing was held. And this for the 1820 lottery took a couple of months, and in the 1821 lottery it was a little bit shorter. And then the grants. If a fortunate drawer chose to do so, they could obtain a grant to their land lot, giving them first title to the property. A survey of each lottery's particulars appears in your syllabus material. and we'll be referring to those from time to time. Please note the description of who was eligible to register for each lottery. For every lottery except the 1805 lottery, there was a 3-year residency requirement prior to the registration period. So even though you don't know exactly where they were in Georgia, you do know they had been in Georgia for at least 3 years. So in the 1827 lottery, you'll note that many Rev War veterans and their widows were eligible for additional draws, even if they had won in a previous lottery. Now here's the map, probably this is also in your syllabus. By looking at this map, you can see the settlement pattern of the state of Georgia. The white area to the right is the Headright grant area, indicating that the land in those counties was distributed using the Headright system, not the lottery system. Different lotteries have different markings, and you can tell which is which by using the legend for the map. This map uses the layout of the original counties designated by the legislature. Now this is my favorite picture, the favorite lottery map. It's on sale at the Georgia Archives, which you can get when they reopen, we hope soon. And it makes a great picture for your office wall when you're doing your Georgia land lottery research. So, using land lottery information in research, you have to know certain things. One, you need to know the history of the place where you are researching. This allows you to identify the types of records that may be available to you. It's also important to know how the records were created and what the contents of the records mean. For instance, your ancestor has 2 draws in the 1807 lottery. What does that tell you about him and the makeup of his family? You need to consult the criteria set by law for a man receiving 2 draws in the 1827 lottery. In this case, it would say he was a free white male with wife and/or legitimate children. Orphan families meeting certain criteria were also eligible for 2 draws. It's important to consult the original law and get the important nuances of that law written in narrative form so that you understand what it's telling you about your ancestor. And later we're going to look at some specific case studies using land lotteries, but there are more general things we can glean from them as well. Of course, the most basic fact was that your ancestor was in a certain county at a certain time, which is very valuable, especially since courthouse catastrophes destroyed many county records in Georgia. Because the land lottery records are state records, they did not suffer these losses. So be sure to make copies of the pages in the index books that have your ancestors' surnames and concentrate your county record research on those counties. Now let's talk about the 1805 land lottery. The 1805 land lottery is the only one for which the names of all registrants are known. So you can see if your ancestor registered for the lottery, even if he or she or they were not a fortunate drawer. A complete list of registrants for other lotteries does not exist, and published resources, books, only include the winners. However, 17 counties in Georgia have lists of registrants for some of the other lotteries available on microfilm at the Georgia Archives. The 1805 lottery is a pretty good substitute for Georgia's 1800 census, which was burned by the British in the War of 1812. Not everyone registered, but about 24,000 residents did, making it a good source of information for genealogists. You might assume that finding your ancestor as a fortunate drawer on the 1805 lottery puts him or her alive in a certain county in 1805. However, that may not be the case. In Paul Graham's book, 1805 Land Lottery, Persons Entitled to Draws, he notes that the residence of participants reflects their location between May 1803 and 1st of March, 1804, which was the registration period set by law, not where they resided during the lottery, which was in the summer of 1805. He further states that a registrant's status does not change during any part of the lottery process. So grants issued many years after the lottery still have the registrant's information that was in effect during the registration period, which can be confusing when you're doing your research. It's even possible that the registrant may have died before the lottery took place, or someone else received the grant with the winner's name on it. Just be aware that this may be the case and look for additional information on your ancestor. Okay, how will you know if your ancestor actually claimed his winnings? One way is to find the grant, then track the lot to see if it was later sold and determine who did the selling. This strategy is also helpful when trying to find the names of orphans who won lots. For example, in the 1820 lottery, the orphans of William Mills won Lot 8, 14th District of Irwin County. Now this lot ended up in Thomas County in 1825 when Thomas took land from Irwin. The heirs of William Mills, who signed the deed, sold the lot in 1830. These are the orphans of William Mills who won the lot in the 1820 lottery. Now, don't assume that this is a complete list of the children of William Mills. Orphans had to be under the age of 21, so there may have been older children in the family. And another thing, as you probably all know, there's the Georgia county's boundaries changed a lot. And in most cases, deeds are going to be in the county where the land ended up, not in the original county. You have to do some county boundary research to ensure you are looking in the correct county for your deeds. And our time during this session will be more profitably spent by looking at how to use the lottery information and not trying to figure out how to, and not reviewing how to find those grants. The Georgia Archives Research Room has printed instructions on how to locate grants, and the Georgia Genealogical Society has published a book that also covers how to find lottery information and gives strategies for locating lottery material. You will want to consult these resources for that kind of information. And don't forget to check the original land lottery records in addition to the published resources you may find. Ferris Cadle, in his book, Georgia Land Survey History and Law, notes that often land speculators followed the surveyors as they surveyed the lots and noted where the most desirable lots were. The speculators would then attend the lottery proceedings and attempt to purchase the lots from the winners before the winners examined those winnings to see if they actually wanted to take them up. In other cases, people who won lots simply decided not to move to the land and sold the land to individuals who wanted to purchase them. In Henry County, which was in the 1821 lottery, the deed books there provide an excellent example of the fact that many winners sold their lots. Henry County was an original county in the 1821 land lottery. A look at just the first 50 pages of Deed Book A in Henry County shows that people from 27 different counties, the province of East Florida, sold their 1821 land lottery winnings to other people. These deeds are among the first deeds recorded in Henry County. Unfortunately, many original counties have had courthouse disasters that prevent us from seeing this early recording of land lottery transfers. But Henry County is an exception to that. Let's take a look at one of these deeds to point out another important genealogical rule. And that rule is always look for corroborating evidence and don't assume anything. Okay, this says John P. Turner of Appling County appoints General John Coffey of Telfair to sell 202.5 acres of land District 8, Lot 156, and 202.5 acres of land District 11, Lot 151, drawn in land lottery by Farabee Carver, wife of John Turner. Now, have we discovered the maiden name of John Turner's wife? Well, before you add Carver to your family group sheet as Mr. Turner's wife's maiden name, let's do some more research. The grant was issued to Farabee Carver, widow of Cooker's District, Appling County, on 13 February 1822. The registration period for the land lottery was within 2 months after the 16th of May, 1821. So she was a widow when she registered for the lottery. Appling County has record laws in 1850, so marriage records are not extant, but we know if she went by the law that she married John P. Turner after she registered for the lottery, sometime between 16 May and 16 July in 1821. A check of the Appling County 1820 census shows only one Carver household that has a female 16 to 25. That is that of Jessie Carver, but is that person Farabee? It's clear that we still don't have the name of Farabee's husband, Mr. Carver, but we do know he was deceased by 16 May 1821, and that she married Mr. Turner after she registered for the lottery. You can see that you need further research to complete the information found in the lottery material and discover the maiden name of Farabee. Let's take a look at some case studies that reveal family relationships. These case studies on the 1805 lottery all come from Paul Graham's book, The 1805 Lottery, Persons Entitled to Draws. After each person registered for this lottery, the State Commission wrote the names of every participant in a set of volumes and gave every participant a unique number. Those are the numbers that you will see in these case studies that we'll talk about. So, in the 1805 case study, number 2231, Hubbard Bidsey, orphan of William Hubbard, Wilkes County, gives you an orphan's name and a clue to where to look for state records. Number 119, Jones Samuel, carpenter, Burke, 2 blanks. So that provides an identifier as an occupation. So with a name like Samuel Jones, there are likely more than one man in Burke County by that name. So they differentiate them by saying what their occupation is. Number 698, Jones James, son of David. He got 2 blanks. Well, here you have where James Jones, we know, is the son of David Jones of Warren County. Okay. And number 134, Jones James Jr., son of Thomas in Columbia County. And number 708, Jones William Jr., son of James, Warren County. This points up to the fact that you cannot assume that Junior is the son of Senior by the same name. So don't assume that James Jones Jr. on your family tree is the son of James Jones Senior, because that may not be the case. Often brothers named their sons for their brothers, so you never know. You need to check that out. So number 158, Jones James, Quaker in Columbia County. This provides religion as an identifier and points to church records, so you need to check out some other resources. And the 1805 lottery, number 1547, Saunders, Elizabeth James, Jonathan, Polly, and Britton, Oglethorpe County. So these people might be siblings, and are probably orphans since they registered as a family, but you're going to need more research in order to know that. I could go on, and there are many examples of this. And you'll note that all of these examples are registrants who drew blanks, and that means that they registered, but they did not win a lot. So a big thank you goes out to Paul Graham for making these valuable resources available to researchers, because this is the only lottery for which that information is available. So let's talk about some additional case studies. Let's talk about the 1821 land lottery. This provides proof of relationship, and our subject is the Pridgeon family. Luke Pridgeon's death is recorded in the 1817 membership list of Neville's Creek Baptist Church in Bullock County. Also, the road orders of July 1817 in the inferior court of Bullock County refers to Luke Pridgeon as dead. So we're quite certain that Luke Pridgeon is deceased. However, no estate record, will, or deed of gift was found to document who his heirs were. In the 1820 lottery, Amelia Pridgeon, widow of Edwards Militia District in Bullock County, drew lot 460, section 6 in Irwin County, Georgia. And Susanna Pridgeon, orphan of Edwards Militia District, Bullock County, drew a different lot, 164 in section 7, Appling County. So Amelia's lot reverted back to the state and was granted to someone else in November of 1847. However, Susanna, the orphan, received this. And it says, it's a grant for the lot in Appling County, and it was made out to Susanna Pridgeon, orphan of Luke of Edwards District, Bullock County. It's clear from this land lottery document that Susanna Pridgeon is the daughter of Luke Pridgeon and that Amelia is his widow. Now, wouldn't it be nice if all our family relationships were so easily laid out for us? All we needed to define this relationship was the 1820 land lottery information. But now let's look at some different cases, probably a little bit more complicated. The 1821 land lottery, William Bedingfield's orphans, Watkins District, Jefferson County, Georgia. They drew lot 97, section 3 in Monroe County. Now, wouldn't it be nice to know the names of these orphans? And I want to mention here that this is courtesy of professional genealogist Nathan Matthews. The 1824 Tax Digest of Jefferson County lists William Coleman, guardian for John Bedingfield. And he's paying taxes on, guess what? Lot 97, section 3, Monroe County, Georgia. Most certainly, John is an orphan of William Bedingfield. He may not be the only orphan, but we know that he is definitely an orphan of William. Now let's take a look at an 1827 land lottery case study, also courtesy of Nathan Matthews. Now the 1824 tax, let's see. This one, okay, this is a case where there are a few more pieces to the puzzle. And it involves the 1827 lottery and a family of orphans who won 2 lots in the lottery. They were eligible, families of orphans were eligible for 2 draws in 1827. Now the first piece says that Rebecca, James, Elizabeth K., Ephraim B., orphans, Dorsey's District, Hall County, Georgia, drew land lot 50, District 15, Section 1, which fell in Lee County, Georgia. The second lot that they drew, Rebecca R., James, Elizabeth K., and Ephraim Beal, Daniel, orphans, Dorsey's District of Hall County, drew land lot 155, District 18, Section 2. Section 2 fell in Muskogee County, Georgia. Now we know the names of the orphans, but who were their parents? Let's see what other information we can find. Okay. Now here in Faye Poss's book on the Clark County newspaper abstracts, we find in the newspaper, the Athenian, dated 6 October 1829, we find a list of letters remaining at the post office in Gainesville. One of them is addressed to the orphans of Ephraim Daniel. So now we think we have their father's name. So let's see what we can find about their mother. The third piece of this puzzle is the 1830 census in Hall County, Georgia. It has an Elizabeth Daniel, head of household, with 2 males aged 10 to 20 and 3 females, 1 15 to 20 and 2 that are 20 to 30 years of age. Is Elizabeth the mother of Daniel's orphans? Well, probably, but we don't have all the pieces yet. So now let's do some additional research on the family and see if we can figure this out. Okay, on the 1820 census, there's an Ephraim Daniel in Walton County. There's no estate record for Ephraim Daniel, but using Ancestry, we located marriages for Daniel's orphans. And we were able to track James S. and Ephraim B. Daniel to 1850 with wives' first names that match their marriage certificates. There is an Elizabeth Daniel, age 65, living with Ephraim B. in 1850, probably his mother. In 1860, there's an Elizabeth Daniels in her own household, age 65, with a 13-year-old Pinckney Daniel. From the research so far, it looks like Rebecca, James, Elizabeth, and Ephraim were the orphans of Ephraim Daniel, whose wife's name was Elizabeth. More research is needed to confirm that Elizabeth was the mother of all 4 children, but most certainly Ephraim Daniel was their father. Okay. Now, this particular, this is a spreadsheet, and I found that taking your Excel spreadsheets and putting everything that you find on those spreadsheets is very helpful. And this example shows what we found. My husband and I were researching the Thomas Clayton family. And on this particular page, we see that there are 4 men of the same surname selling the northwest, southwest, northeast, and southeast corners of a particular land lot 64, 7th District of Pike, originally Monroe County. We didn't find any deeds showing where these men received this land by deed, so we started backtracking to see if we could find the original owner of the land. And when we found it, we found out that this land was distributed in the 1821 land lottery and was won by their father. So when you can't find a deed showing how a person received land that they're selling, backtrack, think about maybe it was distributed in a land lottery and look for those state records. Now, I just wanted to share some interesting items in Georgia land lottery records. For one, the first thing is fraudulent drawers. You didn't have to be a fortunate drawer to get your hands on land lottery proceeds. In some cases, people who are not eligible for a lottery registered anyway. Now, you know people don't do that these days. They don't register for things they're not entitled to. But some lotteries had stipulations that offered a half of the lot to anyone who could prove the winner had registered and therefore won the lottery fraudulently. So all you had to do was just be a snitch. And if your neighbor won a land lot and you know that they registered fraudulently, or maybe they didn't, but you could make a good case for it, all you have to do is go to the authorities and make that charge. And if it proves to be true, then you get half of the lot that your neighbor originally won. Now, the Wilson Hardaway case. Land lottery information has even been used in court cases as late as 1914. A descendant of Wilson Hardaway, whose orphans won a lot in the 1820 lottery, went to court to try to claim the land the orphans had won in 1820. Among the evidence they presented, and it was transcribed into the court record, was the family Bible of one of the orphans of William Hardaway. So you never know where land lottery information might turn up and what we will find in those files. This time it was in court records. And I just wanted to share with you some information about the luckiest woman in the land lotteries. Her name is Elizabeth C. Branham. She was a widow of a Revolutionary War veteran, Spencer Branham. Now, most lotteries had a stipulation that winners of previous lotteries were excluded from winning a second time. The 1832 gold lottery had a certain small loophole that Mrs. Branham used, and it said that previous winners who had not taken out a grant of the lot they won were entitled to register in 1832. Well, Mrs. Branham had sold her previous two winnings, even though she claimed them, she had sold them. So she qualified for the 1832 lottery, and she won. So she won lots in 3 different lotteries. In 1821, she won land lot 52, 9th District in Houston County. It was granted to her in October of 1827. And she sold it to her son on the 24th of December, 1830, maybe a Christmas present. So she qualified as a widow for that land lottery. In 1827, she was as the wife of the widow of a Revolutionary soldier. She won land lot 190, 20th District, Muskogee County, and it was granted to her the 20th of March, 1829. And she sold it on the 28th of March, 1829. And she had, as I said, she qualified as a widow of a Revolutionary War veteran, and she got 2 draws in the lottery. Since she had only won once previously, she could register for this other one using her extra draw. And in 1832, Elizabeth won lot 1007 of 3rd District, 4th section of Cherokee County. And it was sold by her sons on the 27th of March, 1848. So I'm assuming that was probably their inheritance, when she may have been deceased by that time. So they sold that. But she was the luckiest woman in the land lotteries. And I'm sure I wish I could find her today to help me pick some lottery numbers. She could probably shut down Las Vegas in just a few days. So here's a picture of a book you want to add to your Christmas list. It is the book on Georgia land lottery research, written by Paul K. Graham and published by Georgia Genealogical Society. And you can order that as everything else you can order. You can order that on Amazon. So, in conclusion, Georgia's land lotteries are unique in genealogy. Georgia's land lot and district designations have not changed since the original surveys were done. If you purchase a piece of property today, that original land lot and district will appear somewhere in the description of your property. Of course, it won't be the 202.5 acres. Yours may be just a half an acre, but you will see that designation there. Land lottery information can be used in a variety of ways to solve genealogical problems and show relationships. And it's important to know the lottery process so that you can know what the lottery is telling you and what the records are telling you about your ancestors. Knowing how to use this valuable resource to find your Georgia ancestors is of utmost importance. And I wish you happy hunting in the Georgia land lottery information. That concludes my presentation.
We have a question.
Okay.
What is the definition of the term orphan you are using?
Orphan, okay, it changes. You will probably you want to look that up, but usually it meant that it was a child under the age of 21. It may have been that the father was deceased and the mother was still living. It depends on the law that was in effect at the time that you're talking about. But usually it had to be a child under the age of 21.
Okay.
And one or more of their, it could be both of their parents or only one of their parents was deceased.
Okay. We don't have any more questions right now.
Good. Okay, need to do something?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
I want to thank Susan for this informative presentation. It will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so we really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Please join us in November for another interesting program presented by Georgia Archives Conservator Sigourney Smuts. And thank you for being with us.